Evening. Welcome to Prerona Television Canada. We are happy that we are continuing our regular weekly leadership speaker series. Today's our topic is leadership setting expectations, and we are very happy our uh, trainer, Advocate Jiaur Rahman, who is the CEO of IITM at Adjunct Faculty Independent University, is with us. So we are continuing this session, English session, and after that, I will be briefly 10-15 minutes with Bengali. Thank you very much for being with us. I request Advocate Jiaur Rahman to continue. Do you have the PowerPoint presentations I can,
Uh,
or do you want me to do
can
that?
you put me on? Can you allow me the share
Okay.
first? Let me try to fix it myself first. If it doesn't work, then uh, can you see the presentation?
Yeah, can you just full screen, do a full screen here? Okay, that's good.
All right, fantastic. Welcome to the presentation. This is the 13th session, and we have been doing it for the past 13 weeks. Today's topic is leadership, setting expectations. And as usual, welcome to the session. Today is the uh, topic that we have just talked about. So let me move directly into the presentation. Um, so this is a statement by Charles Kettering. In this statement, if you read it, it says high achievement always takes place in the framework of high expectations. So there are two words connected: high achievement and high expectations. So since we are going to talk about setting expectations, this statement makes a lot of sense. Um, if you don't frame your expectations, you don't get your achievements right. So in in everything that we do as a leader, you have to have a proper framing. The reference has to be proper, and with that proper referencing, your achievement is more or less achieved. Otherwise, you can go astray. You may not find your opportunities, that the opportunities that you might be thinking may not properly be executed unless you you create the framework for expectations. And once you do that, the achievement is easier to arrive at. So this statement is by Charles Kettering. Moving to the next slide. This is another statement we can reflect on. The quality of a leader is reflected in the standards they set for themselves. This is also an important statement in the sense that if you truly want to be a leader, you have to set a particular standard for yourself. Let's say it's beyond everyone else. You as a leader, as an organization leader, if it's an organization or if it's an individual, you have to spend time with yourself and analyze your own strength areas, your weakness areas, and you have to frame a particular standard. You have to put a standard out in your mind, in your head, in your thought process, that this is the standard that I would like to achieve, I would like to arrive at. And once you put those standards out, then you know the particular road to travel to. You know that this area you have to achieve at least this milestone, and in this area you have to achieve at least this level of achievement. So you can begin your journey with a complete understanding of the potential future in which direction you plan to move into. So this is very important. This kind of builds up your opportunity, and this kind of gives everyone in your organization to be with you and understanding the process through which you are traveling and the process through which you are actually taking the enterprise forward. So it can be movement in the sense of an enterprise, or it can be a movement in the sense of you as a professional self, an individualistic perspective. So in both perspective, either individualistic or in a group perspective as an organization, this standards are to be maintained. It's similar to, for example, when you sit for an exam, if you set your standard that I definitely have to get an A in this exam, no matter how hard the exam is, then obviously, based on the standard that you are putting out, you have to start putting out the timeline of effort that you have to give in to actually achieve that intended target, that is to achieve that grade A. So as a professional, as a human being, even if you are not, let's per se, the leader of your house, but you're a member within your organization, you must set a standard for yourself. And once these standards are set on a regular basis, this will become part of the organizational culture. If you wake up every day and every morning, if you don't have a plan for the day, then obviously your day is not going to be as effective vis-a-vis a day where the planning has been properly undertaken, and a planning, and you're moving based on a plan. You will probably achieve more at the end of the day. So the standard setting is part of the dynamics of a good leader. A good leader shall definitely have appropriate standards for himself or herself and the team. Moving to the next slide. Leadership is about expectations and navigating towards it. We have these small definitions in every single session that we had previously. So in this session, I've made it a very simple but very clear statement on leadership from a definitional point of view. So what is leadership? It is about setting expectations and navigating, traveling towards it, sort of finding your way into the managing the expectations. So if you don't set the expectation, the question, the second question of navigating towards it does not even arrive. So unless you set these goals, set these standards, set these pathways, set these milestones, you will not be in a position to navigate towards it. Where what position would you navigate to if you don't have those standards set? So setting is vital. It's inherently an important component and integral to success as a leader. And once you put those points out, markers out, once you have those markers out, you can actually find ways to travel towards it, find ways to get to those markers, get to those milestones, and then achievement will be more. And when we talk about leadership, you are actually leading in the sense vis-a-vis others, in the sense that you are actually producing a little bit more than the rest of the crowd, rest of the people, and that is putting yourself out as a leader. You need to mark yourself as somebody vibrant, somebody different, somebody producing an extra benefit to the community and the environment in which you are operating. So that is the sign or testament of a better leader. So if you push those points out, if you start planning those points in the sense that these are the expectation and you map those points, then ultimately your efficiency, your productivity, and your growth, either individual growth or professional growth as an organization, will be extended, will be larger than anybody else who is not properly setting those expectations. Okay, moving to the next slide. So coming back to this, why expectations matter. Why is it important that we have to have certain expectations and we have to level towards those expectations? It starts with the point of your anchoring. You are anchoring with a particular predicament, particular standard, particular set of objectives. And if you are anchoring to those particular points, you are pretty much sure that you are in the right direction, in the right pathway to success. So anchoring, connecting to those points is important. Once you anchor, then your confidence level goes up. Once you anchor, then others know that these are the expectation points, these are the expectation milestones that you are driving towards. That means everybody will frame their sense and purpose, and also perhaps align their uh, missions and visions in line with the anchors that you have put in the journey towards your growth as an individual or as an organization. Second point, provides you the sail. Of course, when you are on an ocean, if you don't set your sailing path, if you don't know how to go from port A to port B, navigating the high seas and the winds and the rocks and all the, let's say, the icebergs and everything. So those are obstacles in the course. So if you are actually moving with the understanding of the entire course, then you will be properly navigating. Your sailing pathway will be properly structured. So obviously your outcome, the benefit that you would like to get at the end of the journey would be more significant, and your energy levels in this process will be better optimized. If you're always thinking of a different solution in your pathway to your leadership target, then you probably will not be a successful leader because you didn't plan well. So as we know that planning is a vital component of success. So provides you the sale is part of the planning construct. So if you're planning your journey, as we know that the anchoring starts with your setting expectation, and then if you plan your journey, provides you the direction, then you will actually do better. And third point, clarity. Clarity is absolutely vital. A leader has to offer clarity. A leader has to have clarity in his or her own head as well. So two things. Clarity has to be communicated, and clarity has to be properly understood in your own personal self. If you are not clear about the journey, if you're not clear about what expectations that you are actually mapping out to, then things have to evolve as we move along in the pathway, in the journey to your uh, future, and that would be choppy, that will be confusing. At many points you will lose hope amongst your people, you will lose also hope amongst yourself. Why? Because you didn't have a particular uh, vision of the future that you are targeting. The vision has to be sort of seen, noticed, absorbed, understood at a high level in your head. And once you can see the future in your own head, that means you have the clarity of the purpose for which you're driving towards in your head. Things will begin to come uh, properly, come effectively one after the other, and you will know after this point you are moving to the next level in a particular way, and that will be very helpful. number Point number four, manage hope and aspiration. Again, we know that when things are properly working, you have the anchor, you have the proper sailing targets, sailing direction, it's absolutely clear in your head which direction you're moving, then hopes will go up. Hopes will go up. Your aspirations for success will be visible, noticeable, understood amongst your community, amongst your team members, and absolutely within your own self. If your own hope as a leader is extended, if your aspirations are clear with absolute no confusion, then that will exude confidence. That will show a level of commitment, and with commitment, everything else will drive the organization forward. So, managing hope within the environment, managing hope within your extended stakeholders. We talked about stakeholder process previously. So, this is absolutely essential to be able to bridge the gap, because hopes and aspirations actually ebb and flow. Sometimes things are working properly, the organization is feeling the vibe, and things are moving in the right direction. All of a sudden, a period of lull takes place, and things are not proper. Things seem to be going, in turbulent. You are in the middle of a turbulent sea, and all the planning that you had done previously are not coming to fruition. Then you are lost in the middle of a sea per se, not in the real sense, but in the emotional sense, in the symbolic sense. So you have to find your journey again and set those milestones back again, anchor them again, uh, set these notions of the sailing process. The clarity has to be brought back in very quickly as possible, and then you align your hopes and aspiration with all the previous issues, and then you actually move forward. So that's when the issue of balance, the balancing the ambition and possibilities comes, and that is why the last point in this slide is balancing ambition and possibilities. If you are if you are going out too far out only by yourself and not taking everyone with you, then the journey it becomes lonely. The journey becomes difficult because you are the lone star. You are moving at a breakneck speed, and your commitment is absolutely 100%. Whereas the people around you, people who are supposed to be tagging along with you, are no longer with you. You are seeing that their strengths are attritioning. They're visibly confused. Their hopes and aspirations have been dented, perhaps due to certain issues during the milestone setting uh, point where you may have achieved a certain milestone, but the team did not achieve that particular milestone. So they are visibly confused, but you didn't realize as a leader that things are not going in the right direction. So these entirety of the points that I talked about does make a lot of sense, in the sense that why expectations matter. It gives you the answer. It gives a clear answer. If your expectations are not properly understood, then your boat, the journey in which you are moving forward, is not going to take place properly. You might be going in circles. And as you know, that as an organization or as a team, if your outputs are not aligning with the market, then you as a competitor are actually falling behind vis-a-vis your other uh, competitors. And it's about taking the market, right? If you are a leader, you are dealing with certain products, you're dealing with certain service, and perhaps you're dealing with maybe direct sales, maybe. So in that case, you as a sales leader will falter, and others will take over your territory, others will take over your market share. So these are vital, these expectations are vital. And if you can consider those expectations with, say, your sales target, then it can be an effective tool to navigate towards. So your target setting could be the anchors in which you want to drive your organization forward. Your team members and their appropriate training and their appropriate methodology in communicating your product and services can be considered like the sail, the journey through which you're bringing your team together and pushing them forward. The proper effective communication with regards to your product and service could be considered your points of clarity. Managing hopes and aspiration could be your team motivation, team inspiration, team meetings, guiding them, mentoring them, coaching them. That could be considered your team aspiration. And then balancing, meaning at the end of the day, you're doing your assessment, you're understanding the process once more. Things that have gone wrong, you might want to revisit those areas and develop those components in which you actually will be able to build your organization forward. So These are essential ingredients, and that is why expectations matter. So let me move to the next slide. Expectations mapping. Mapping in the sense you're putting the things on a particular terrain, you're on a particular map, and you visibly can see what is going on and at what capacity, at what level things are moving. So as a leader, you can really balance things. You can really see eye to eye what's going on within your organization, within your team, or within your own expectations mapping exercise that you have designed for your own self. That you can do on a regular basis, that you can actually have your expectations in your head. You can actually jot them down, think about them, and then maybe reprioritize your expectations, because based on the market, things can change drastically and you might have to evolve your strategies. So expectations can be aligned with your strategy. So expectations mapping, the first component is communicating your expectations. As we mentioned, that if you don't properly communicate with your team member as a leader, and previously in previous slides we had discussed these issues in greater detail, where why communications matter. So communicating, telling your team members, giving them the proper audience, allowing them to speak and share their views, and you be there to take their questions, and you offer them opportunities to think in a slightly different way, perhaps in the way you are thinking. So you might want to go through this entire process of communicating your expectations. And remember, when you are offering your communication with team members, something magical can also take place. It's called bonding. So communication is a two-way process. You're sharing information, you're coding some information, somebody on the other side is decoding the communication and trying to absorb the understanding. And in this process, if you are properly communicating, if the system and the dynamics are properly set up, then there is bonding taking place. Visibly, you will see that both teams, like you as a person and maybe your team members as a set of people, are starting to align their thought process in line with the vision, or in line with the objectives that you have set, that you expect them to absorb. So communicating your expectations becomes vital. If you're not spending time there, effective and adequate time, then no matter how great of a gizmo, how great of an idea that you are bringing to the table, things may not properly pan out. Things may not be effective. So communicating expectations becomes a very important tool. The next point is motivating team members to follow the given path. It sits on the previous setting of communication. So once the communications is proper, then the motivation level between your team members will actually start to rise. And as we know, everything and anything in the life of a human being has an element of motivation. You don't wake up early in the morning to do something unless you're motivated to get some objectives done through that work process. So motivating your team through proper communication will allow them to align themselves and follow a particular path, the path in which you want your organization to move forward. This path is crucial. Why? Because it has to have an element of clarity that we had talked about in the previous slide. So issues of motivation, ways of motivating, and have to be properly rolled out. And you have to realize that no two people are equally motivated by the same statements, by the same planning. So motivation levels may have to be altered between your departments. Imagine you're in a position where you're the CEO or you're the business owner of a large enterprise, and you have hundreds of thousands of people. Each department is somewhat different from the other department. So departmental motivation from one department to the other department have to be altered, have to be uh, aligned with their own points of strength with their own cultural understanding and nuances, and you have to create that motivation aligning with their department, their perspective, their notions. So if you are the CEO of a big corporation or the owner of a big corporation, and if you think that your motivation level between back office accounting and let's say the design team, or let's say the R&D team or the sales process team have to be this at a similar level, then perhaps you're not in the right frame of reference. So you have to realign your understanding of what level of motivation you need to provide at what capacity for what team members. This is important so that they follow a particular given path. But at the end, every single department will need motivation. You can't just consider motivating your sales team. This is a common misnomer, a common misunderstanding amongst organization and team members that we are very driven by training and development. And when you ask these people, okay, so what type of training you have been providing to your team members, and they keep on talking about sales related training, communication related training to particular segments of the organization. Absolutely important that you have to give more training to particular segments, but it is also important that all for a particular process to work, all the cogs of the wheel have to be properly aligned and properly greased. If one of the cogs is not properly greased, it will create noise, it will create disturbance. So each department can be considered as a cog within the wheel. So you have to be properly giving a reasonable level of motivation, reasonable of training to these team members of different teams. So that's the success of a good team leader. That's the success of a good leader as the CEO or the owner of an organization. So once you are given the path and you're motivating them to follow that target, you build a set of events, a sequence of events, just like the milestones that we talked about. It's like the matrix. It is like the litmus test. For example, you want to achieve a target A, so you might want to build smaller target A minus A star, whatever so maybe others smaller targets within the larger target. The larger target is your ultimate target, but you put smaller targets so that you know that team are working with an effective understanding of the total expectation that you have set for the team. Maybe visibly some people are missing out on the expectation, and if you are uh, putting them through the small baskets of objectives to achieve or targets to achieve, then if they can achieve those targets, then you know that okay, segment one has been achieved, therefore they're in the right direction. But if you wait for the team to produce the final results without even assessing them in the middle in the process, then you might be setting yourself for a failure, and uh, by that time you will not have enough time to rectify any of the issues. So your whole idea of achieving something will be tossed out the window, and that is very dangerous because that is going to cost money, that is going to cost efficiency, that is going to cost in terms of motivation, your mindset. Everything will be challenged. It's not just monetary challenge, it will be spiritually, you will be down, you will be affected. And when a ship is affected and the proper rudders are not aligned, it will take a long time for your ship to come back into the right course and the right journey. By this time, the great winds have taken your ship into different domains from where you have to retract, regroup, re-energize and re-motivate and finally come back into your path of achieving target. So these are costly affairs and you don't want to go in that direction. So it's best to have minimum meaning targets and aligning those targets, aligning your team with those targets. So sequencing, building a sequence of events is essential for your leadership growth. The last point is leadership connects the dots. So why did I mention the word dots? It's just to give you an understanding that uh, in life, many things are like small dots. If you are not connecting the dots, then you might fall into a, a gap from where it will be very hard for you to pick up. So all these dots of communication, all these dots of motivation, all the dots of building a proper sequence are to be connected appropriately in the right sequence and the right structure. Then the expectations from your team will be high. Then the setting the targets will be, you can set larger targets because your team dynamics is much more effective, much more efficient, and much more strategically aligned with the ultimate vision and objective of your organization. So, your leadership through the expectations mapping will be able to effectively connect the dots. So, connecting the dots becomes very important. And these dots can be not just target outcomes only. These dots could be uh, dots of proper feeling, dots of sensibly, visibly understanding the process. Dots could be the entire methodology itself. Dots could be the design process and the in line with the alignment process and ultimately the achievements that can take place in the marketplace. So the expectations mapping becomes vital, and due to the proper expectations mapping, again, your success is optimized because your efficiency and your effectiveness is strengthened. And once you have these two components within your organization, within your own self, you will lead as a leader. Moving to the next slide. Aligning with stakeholder expectations. We had a presentation on stakeholders, and uh, I will just very briefly talk about stakeholders just in case some of you have not uh, gone through the concept of stakeholders previously. So, oh, sorry. Um, so what is a stakeholder? Who is a stakeholder? A stakeholder is a person or an organization that is connected directly or indirectly with your organization or your uh, vision as an organization. For example, the employees are your direct stakeholders. Your customers are your direct stakeholders. The owners community are your direct stakeholders. The regulators are in some ways direct and some ways indirect stakeholders. The people in the community who have opened up restaurants around your premises, thinking that your workers will come out and need breakfast or lunch, and these restaurants will operate around the premise that you will have certain days of work on a week, and a certain number of people will actually come out and eat, and those restaurants, those shops will actually support your people within your organization. They are your indirect stakeholders. People in the community who are somewhat connected indirectly to your organization can be your stakeholders. The vendors might be directly or indirectly your stakeholders. So understanding that you are part of the ecosystem, part of the business environment or organizational environment, and their expectations have to map with your expectations. If they are too diverse, your expectation is to do something completely different, where with their understanding of your expectation and their sense of connecting with your expectation, if they're too diverse, then it will not work. For example, I'll give you a simple example. Example of, let's say you're setting up a factory of 100 people, and your expectation that you want to have is that every employee will bring food from their home, and they will not come out of the office factory premises during lunchtime. They will work from 8 to 5 with the break in between, and at 5 o'clock they will leave your factory doors and directly go home. That is your expectation. That means you don't want your factory workers to mingle with the community or go out and take buy things, or go for lunch during lunch break. That is your expectation. But let's say a local restaurant that has been set up or is in the process of being set up with another set of expectations that, oh, this is a factory with 100 people, we shall have at least 20 people coming and eating on a regular basis in our restaurant, and therefore I can have a reasonable living. So though both expectations are different, your expectations are different and the community's expectations are different. So if there is no connectivity between these expectations, then either of you will actually be having a failure. Maybe the restaurant will fail, or maybe your employees will be frustrated because they're not being allowed to go out and eat at that particular restaurant. So your expectation mapping and getting them to or be aligning with your expectation will not work. So that is the whole reason of aligning your expectation with the expectations of the community. So you need to map your expectations with the expectations of the community. And this example was a simple example, yet very uh, powerful example. Next point is strengthen common areas of strength. That means between you and, let's say, your vendor. Vendor is your stakeholder. You need to find common areas of strength. For example, you are producing a product which needs a high quality input because you are trying to push yourself and promote yourself in the market as being a product of high standards. Therefore, if your part of your product is not manufactured within your factory, you have to be absolutely sure whose input you're bringing in, whether it's raw material or whether it's small gadget that you're bringing in, adding with your main product, and then selling it as your own product. You need to have those expectations also aligned with your expectation. Your expectation is to get your team members to produce a high quality, most durable product. And that's same expectations have to be communicated to your vendor. So these are the areas of strength on which you have to work together. So the expectation mapping on both sides have to be proper. The third one is minimize areas of weakness. Similarly, you might have an area of weakness, and similarly, your vendor or people in your community having connectivity with you may have the same type of weakness. You need to make sure these weaknesses are properly understood between you and your stakeholder, and then you can find a way to minimize these weaknesses. This is important because once you minimize your weakness, that means it is turning towards your strength ultimately. Because in a market rivalry kind of situation, any advancement can ultimately make you competitive, and that competitiveness will become your areas of strength ultimately. So weakness issues and managing weakness would be very important. So the lower your weakness, ultimately the greater your opportunity in the market. Um, with the community, with the expectations of the community and your expectations, if you can find common grounds of achieving better results, then it would be very helpful. For example, I'll give you another example. You have set up a factory, and your landscaping is fairly nice within your factory, but as soon as you step out and into the road and into the community, you actually have to go through a particular patch of area which is very ugly, so to speak. It has not been landscaped. It looks very odd, but that patch might be very small a patch. Then you go into the large, bigger road, and then you go into your, whatever, your home or other destinations. But this patch is not nicely decorated. So you might want to work with your uh, stakeholders, explore new grounds. In this case, what is this new ground? You want to make the patch of land uh, more, look, you want it to look better. And therefore, you might contribute a little bit of your funds and make it look decent. So you are actually exploring new grounds. Exploring new grounds might be talking to your vendor and having strategic meetings and connecting with their design team and your design team and find ways to improve your product. So that could be new grounds, or find opportunities for new products. That could be your exploration of new grounds. Talking to your own customer segment, talking to your own investor segments. You can create new ideas, new policies, and new future expansion opportunities, new investments, etc. So exploring new ground. So expectations can be brought to a higher level, and you're aligning with your stakeholders. Then build internal synergy. Synergy is vital. Without proper synergy mapping, you will not be coming up with an opportunity for you or your stakeholders. So what is synergy? Synergy is like 2 plus 2 becomes 5, not 4 anymore. If you're doing a research, only one person on the team might take 6 months. Whereas if you have two people, it may not take 3 months. It may take slightly less. Why? Because you will be collaborating. Two heads can get slightly more output. Also, there is a saying in English that too many cooks spoil the broth. Therefore, you have to optimize what level of participation you want to bring in order to have a synergistic effect. Synergy actually produces more outcome than individually aggregated outcome. And then once you align all your expectations with all the community and you're looking at the strength, you have actually advanced your strengths, you have reduced your weakness, you have explored new opportunities and new grounds, and you have built a proper synergistic landscape, synergistic work environment and work practices, then you are actually rolling things in action. Things are already moving in the right direction. You are setting the proper expectations, and all of the smaller ingredients in mapping the expectations are being properly nurtured, nourished, and are properly being rolled out. So you obviously will get a decent outcome. And with this decent outcome, that will enable you to be running your organization more effectively, and you as a leader will also be more efficient, because firefighting issues are a lot less reduced. It's more aligned with all your team members' expectations and your community expectations, and the entire stakeholder management process that we had talked about in a previous presentation will be very fluid and will definitely deliver better results. Now, moving to the next slide. Managing expectations. Slightly, we had actually talked about, but I want to alter it in with slight uh, changes in viewpoint. What is this viewpoint? We can think about expectation as a overall, all-encompassing cover. So if you can manage the entire cover from a holistic, top-down perspective, and if you can communicate it effectively, then the outcome will be much more effective. Then in this expectations mapping, and you're in the process of managing your expectations, you have to define roles and responsibilities. Who is to do what? Who has the purview of certain things? Who has the extension in terms of leadership and the role of monitoring and supervising? So those roles have to be defined, those rules have to be properly framed. Otherwise, maybe you are a great leader, you go into a factory floor, you give proper motivation, and people are inspired for a few minutes, and then you come out and do other work, and by that time that motivation level has come down, and no particular team members are given the task of driving those motivations, driving those great points that you had raised to move forward. There are no such uh, persons, no such anchoring points who will be driving these ideas forward, then your entire effort will not work. It's like having a great meeting, but you didn't put anything in pen and paper, and then after the meeting, everything is lost. So it will not work. So putting things in perspective, putting things in pen and paper is like the setting your roles and setting your rules. So that's very important. Setting expectation milestones and act and get them organized. Setting expectations milestones and accessing those, meaning overcoming and guiding yourself beyond those points. So as we talked about, everything is connected with expectations and milestones. And so if you want to manage your operation properly as a good leader, you have to have those milestones properly framed. And then talk about the loose ends. Loose ends means things that you had overlooked, things that are in your way, which you perhaps did not properly give attention to in your journey in this process, and those are becoming a sore. Those are creating some kind of problem within your organization. So you have to start planning and you replan with those tying up those loose ends so that you don't falter, so that you are not pushed back by your team members or anyone in your stakeholder community. So things are moving in the right direction, and then you implement. And when you're implementing, you have to go through the process that whatever you're implementing, you have to review them, you have to reassess them, and if things are not working, then you have to redeploy a new strategy and go back to the first rung and start the process again. And this is a continuous process. And once you are effectively managing the expectations, things of your organization will move in the right direction. So moving to the next slide. I don't want to discuss those. That was the idea of analyzing expectations we just talked about. So moving into the next slide. Um, um, we don't want to, we have talked about it in detail. So instead of going through this, let me move to the next issue. I want to sort of bring you to the last slide. It says, it's a normal $1 million question that I have. Do you set expectations based on what you have or what you plan to have? Do you set expectations based on what you have or what you plan to have? So issue is, do you set expectations on things that you have in your hand already, or do you set expectation as a leader on things you may not have, but if you push or hustle, you may have? So in my mind, a very rational leader would be thinking in terms of the first part. They will set expectations based on the resources that I have. What I don't have, I don't want to set any expectations. I don't want to have a extremely colorful and vibrant vision where I don't truly have the resource, neither the technology nor the capacity to achieve those visions right at this moment. So I might as well have a realistic vision and set my expectation aligning with those vision. This is one type of mindset. This is okay. However, a very prominent and dominant leader sometimes goes beyond. And that is also needed at times. If you want to lead in society, if you want to lead in terms of your strength and really pushing the agenda of growth within your organization and within your team member, you might have stretching expectations. That is connected with stretching goals. Maybe you can only achieve up to 30%, but you have taken a target of 50%. You are pushing yourself to the limit. Uh, Sometimes it's not proper, but sometimes it can work because you never know. By setting yourself to a larger limit, you might find un, you might find areas of strength that you particularly previously didn't have any understanding of, but it popped up that this is a particular area of strength that you have. You get those strength areas, connect them those with your overall objectives, and ultimately you drive the organization to a grander success. One is a success that the leader in the first uh, set of expectations will achieve, realistic, logical, and achievable. And then the second part, you are moving your organization to a larger, more riskier growth pattern, growth path. However, you are building this energy, building this real strength to drive beyond what you have. And ultimately, perhaps by driving beyond, you might create an opportunity to have those resources within your organization. If you all of a sudden set a, let's say, your technology company in a particular domain, let's say IT technology, and you have a product which is, let's say, reasonably good in the market, but let's say you set a target of becoming number one in terms of technology in the shortest possible time frame of, let's say, 1 year. Then if you start communicating that, all of a sudden you might see more people who are leading in the industry, maybe as an employee in other organizations, may want to align with you right away and start connecting with you and be part of your expectations exercise, and may even join you in your hand to achieve that superlative target. So things can change. Ultimately, your landscape can change without you even anticipating right at the beginning. So for this question, I have no one answer. It all depends on the characteristics of your team, the leadership potential of your team, and the courage of your team. So with that, I want to end my 13th presentation, and back to you, Edward. Uh, Back to you in studio. Thank you very much.
All right,
Should I
thank you.
stop? Should I
Yes, you
stop
can
this share?
stop the screen sharing.
Okay, thank you very much.
Thank you very much
You're
for
welcome.
the presentation, and I'm very happy that we have conducted a wonderful session, leadership session. Uh, Let me open my screen. So in this presentation, we have discussed leadership, the setting expectation. And the first thing that I'd like to share with you, just let me bring this presentation here.
Isn't the presentation coming? If you want, then I could actually bring out the
Yeah, it's
presentation
coming,
for
right?
you.
Just hold on. Yeah.
Okay.
All right. So today we discussed about leadership and setting expectation. Uh, just hold on, it's not moving. Okay. Right. Just having some difficulty. Sorry. All right. We discussed about the leadership and the setting expectation, and then briefly, uh, Roman, you have already mentioned the high achievement always takes place in the framework of high expectation. I'd just like to very briefly share with you because he already mentions everything. But my thoughts on that $1 million question. So the $1 million question is: do you set expectation based on what you have or what you plan to have? So this is very important to understand that uh, how do you do it here? So my observation here is uh, now here we need to have a very good plan here, and then one if you don't have a plan, then you can right expect. So one of the important thing for you to as a better planner, as a leader in any organizations, if even though you are whatever capacity you're working at, so your role is actually be a good right communicator, a good participant in the process of leadership or for leadership. So here you set an expectation based on what you have or what you plan to have. So you set an expectation, so you have a planner, so you have a good plan, and then you can do that. So with that, I would like to end this presentation, English presentation, and I will briefly share with you what we have learned today in Bengali briefly. Thank you very much. And those who are following with us in English, we are actually regularly um, having this training session every Wednesday at 8:30 Edmonton, which is Mountain Standard Time, and in Toronto time is 10:30 p.m. and in Bangladesh time is 8:30 a.m. in the morning following day, and in Kolkata, India time is 8 o'clock in the morning the following day. Thank you very much. We'll be having the next session in next coming week. Those who are following with us in English, thank you very much. প্রেরণা টেলিভিশন কানাডার পক্ষ থেকে আপনাদেরকে স্বাগতম জানাচ্ছি। আমরা আমাদের প্রতি সপ্তাহে আমরা যে লিডারশিপ ট্রেনিং সেশন করি এবং আমাদের রেগুলার উইকলি সিরিজের ধারাবাহিকতা আজকে আমাদের সিরিজের যে টপিক রয়েছে সেটা হচ্ছে লিডারশিপ এবং সেটিং এক্সপেকটেশন। আজকে আমাদের সাথে ছিলেন আমরা যে রেগুলার যে ট্রেনার অ্যাডভোকেট জিয়াউর রহমান, উনি খুব সুন্দরভাবে আমাদের এই বিষয়টিকে আলোচনা করেছেন। আমি আপনাদের সাথে কয়েকটা বিষয় সামারিতে আমি আপনাদের সাথে শেয়ার করতে যাচ্ছি যে আমরা আসলে কি এখানে শিখতে পারছি এখানে। তো এখানে আমাদের এখানে একটা কোটেশন বলা আছে যে হাই অ্যাচিভমেন্ট অলওয়েজ টেক প্লেস ইন ফ্রেমওয়ার্ক অফ হাই এক্সপেকটেশন। সো আমাদের একটা জিনিস মনে রাখতে হবে যে যদি আমাদের এক্সপেকটেশন আমাদের যে হাই এক্সপেকটেশনের যদি ফ্রেমওয়ার্ক না থাকে, আমরা যদি সেটা নাই করি, তাহলে কিন্তু আমরা হাই অ্যাচিভমেন্ট পেতে পারি না। তো এখানে আরেকটা বিষয় রয়েছে, কোয়ালিটি অফ আ লিডার ইজ রিফ্লেক্টেড ইন স্ট্যান্ডার্ডস দে সেট ফর দেমসেলফ। তো প্রত্যেক লিডারেরই একটা যারা ভালো লিডার বা যারা প্রগতিশীল লিডার বা যারা দূরদর্শী দূরদর্শী সম্পন্ন লিডার, তারা সবসময় চাবে তাদের নিজেদের জন্য একটা স্ট্যান্ডার্ড সেট করতে, এবং স্ট্যান্ডার্ডটা অবশ্যই হাই স্ট্যান্ডার্ড। এবং তারা যেহেতু এই স্ট্যান্ডার্ডটা করে এবং তার উপর নির্ভর করে একজন লিডারের সে কোয়ালিটি। তো আরেকটা বিষয় এখানে বলা আছে যে লিডারশিপ ইজ অ্যাবাউট সেটিং এক্সপেকটেশন এন্ড নেভিগেটিং টুয়ার্ডস ইট। সো লিডারশিপের নেতৃত্বের সবচেয়ে বড় বিষয়টা হচ্ছে যে আমরা একটা এক্সপেকটেশনস বা আমাদের যে আমরা যে কি আশা করি সেটা যদি আমরা সেট করি তা এবং এইটা অনুযায়ী যদি আমরা কাজ করি, তাহলে কিন্তু আমরা সঠিকভাবে নেতৃত্ব দিতে পারবো। এবং নেতৃত্ব মানে কি? নেতৃত্ব মানে শুধু পজিশনই না বা আমাদের ইয়ে না, এবং নেতৃত্ব মানে আমাদের অর্গানাইজেশনের ক্ষেত্রে যদি বলি, অর্গানাইজেশনের যে আমাদের যে এক্সিলেন্স আমরা পেতে পারি, আমাদের প্রফিটেবিলিটি পেতে পারি, আমরা প্রোডাক্টিভিটি পেতে পারি। ব্যক্তিগত ক্ষেত্রে যদি হয় লিডারশিপ, তাহলে যদি আমরা সেটিং এক্সপেকটেশন, আজকে যদি আমি এক পজিশনে থাকি, আমরা যদি ইফ ইউ হ্যাভ সেটিং হ্যাভ গুড এক্সপেকটেশন, হায়ার এক্সপেকটেশন, এবং এটা যে অনুযায়ী যদি আমরা কাজ করি, তো নেক্সট পিরিয়ডে আমরা উই ক্যান গো টু দ্য নেক্সট লেভেল। তারপরে এখানে ওয়াই এক্সপেকটেশন ম্যাটার্স, এক্সপেকটেশন আসলে কেন আমাদের দরকার সুন্দরভাবে আলোচনা করা হয়েছে। সো আমাদের যে জার্নি রয়েছে, আমরা জানি যে আমাদের লাইফ ইজ অলসো আ জার্নি, এবং এই যে লার্নিং ইজ অলসো আ জার্নি। আমরা যে লিডারশিপের ট্রেনিং নিচ্ছি সেটাও একটা জার্নি। তো এই জার্নিটা আমরা এক্সপেকটেশন করব, কেন আমাদের এটার কাছে গুরুত্বপূর্ণ। তো আমাদের জার্নি, আমাদের যে যাত্রা রয়েছে, যাত্রাকে আমাদের সহজ করে দেয়। প্রোভাইডস ইউ সেল, আমরা জানি যে আমাদের একটা দিক নির্দেশনা এখানে দেয়। সো আমরা আমরা যদি আমাদের এক্সপেকটেশন না থাকে, তাহলে আমরা দিক নির্দেশনা পেতে পারি না, এবং ইট কিপস ক্ল্যারিটি। আমরা জানি যে কোনো কিছুতে সাকসেসফুল হতে গেলে আমাদের আমরা সাকসেসফুল হতে গেলে আমাদের ক্ল্যারিটি দরকার রয়েছে। ক্ল্যারিটি ছাড়া কিন্তু আমরা উই ক্যান গেট ফলোয়ার্স এবং আমরা উইল ফেইল। সো উই নিড টু হ্যাভ ক্ল্যারিটি, আমাদের ক্ল্যারিটি থাকতে হবে। আমাদের হোপ অ্যাসপিরেশন, আমাদের যে আশা রয়েছে অ্যাসপিরেশন, সেটা আমাদের থাকতে ম্যানেজ করে ব্যালেন্সেস অ্যাম্বিশন অ্যান্ড পসিবিলিটিস। এবং আমাদের যে সম্ভাবনা রয়েছে, আমাদের এই সম্ভাবনাকে আহ, আমাকে এক্সপেকটেশন আমরা আমরা মাধ্যমে আমরা এই সম্ভাবনা আমরা দেখতে পাই। তো এই বিষয়গুলোর জন্য আমাদের এক্সপেকটেশন দরকার। সেজন্য আজকে লিডারশিপ সিরিজে আমরা এই বিষয়টাকে একটু আলোকপাত করতে চাই, যে আপনারা একটু চিন্তা করেন, দেখেন যে আমাদের লাইফে ব্যক্তিগত পর্যায়ে এই এক্সপেকটেশনটা কতখানি গুরুত্বপূর্ণ। আপনি যদি অর্গানাইজেশনের ক্ষেত্রে দেখেন, এটা আমাদের কাছে কত গুরুত্বপূর্ণ। আপনি প্রশ্নগুলো করেন নিজের কাছে, যে আমরা কিভাবে আমাদের এই এক্সপেকটেশনটা আমাদের ব্যক্তিগত জীবনে, আমাদের অর্গানাইজেশন বা প্রফেশনাল ক্ষেত্রে আমরা কিভাবে কাজে লাগাইতে পারি। এরপরে হচ্ছে এক্সপেকটেশন ম্যাপিং। এক্সপেকটেশন ম্যাপিংটা কিভাবে করা যেতে পারে? তো এখানে ওটা অনেক বড় বিষয়, বাট আমরা যদি খুব সংক্ষেপে বা ব্রিফলি যদি এটাকে বলি, যে আমাদের এখানে সবচেয়ে যে এক্সপেকটেশনটা, কমিউনিকেটিং এক্সপেকটেশন। সো এই কমিউনিকেশনের একটা বিরাট ভূমিকা রয়েছে, এবং কিভাবে আমরা এক্সপেকটেশনটা করতে পারি। আমরা জানি যে আমরা যখন আমরা একটা অর্গানাইজেশনে থাকি, আমরা টিমের মাধ্যমে কাজ করি। তো টিমের মাধ্যমে যদি কাজ করি, আমাদের কমিউনিকেট করতে হবে আমাদের এক্সপেকটেশনটা, মোটিভেট টিম মেম্বার্স টু ফলো আ গিভেন পাথ, এবং আমাদের অন্য যে টিম মেম্বার রয়েছে তাদেরকে উৎসাহিত করতে হবে, অনুপ্রাণিত করতে হবে, যাতে তারা যে আমাদের আহ যে যাত্রা রয়েছে, বা যে আমাদের গোল রয়েছে, সেই গোল অনুযায়ী আমরা সামনে আগাতে পারি। এরপর রয়েছে বিল্ড বিল্ড আ সিকোয়েন্স অফ ইভেন্ট। এবং এরপরে কি, আমাদের যদি এক্সপেকটেশন থাকে, তখন আমরা বলতে পারি যে আমরা বিভিন্ন রকমের ইভেন্ট আমরা তৈরি করতে পারি। যেমন আমরা যদি বলি যে আমরা একটা আম, আহ, আম- আমরা একটা আমাদের কোম্পানিটা এক্সপ্যান্ড করব, আমাদের নেক্সট একটা ইউনিট সেট করব। যদি আমরা করতে চাই, দেন আমাদেরকে উই নিড টু হায়ার পিপল। তারপরে আমাদের যারা এখন বর্তমানে যারা আছে তাদেরকে ট্রেনিং করাইতে হবে। সো উই ক্যান লিস্ট সিকোয়েন্স অফ ইভেন্ট, আমরা বিল্ড সিকোয়েন্স অফ ইভেন্ট। সো কোনো কিছুটা আমরা যদি আমাদের যদি এক্সপেকটেশন থাকে, আমাদের জন্য সহজ হয় এটা। লিডারশিপ কানেক্টস দ্য ডটস, এবং লিডারশিপের মাধ্যমে এটা কিন্তু সম্ভব। এরপরে হচ্ছে অ্যালাইনিং উইথ স্টেক হোল্ডার্স এক্সপেকটেশন ইজ ভেরি ইম্পর্টেন্ট। কারণ আমরা জানি, আমরা এর আগেও এই যে আরেকটা সেশনে আমরা লিডারশিপ এবং স্টেক হোল্ডারের যে গুরুত্বটা রয়েছে সেটা আমরা দেখেছি। যে স্টেক হোল্ডার বলতে আমরা কি বোঝা যাচ্ছে? স্টেক হোল্ডার বলতে যে যারাই আমাদের ব্যবসার সাথে, আমাদের অর্গানাইজেশনের সাথে জড়িত রয়েছে, তারা সবাই স্টেক হোল্ডার্স। এটা আমাদের এমপ্লয়ি হতে পারে, আমাদের ক্লায়েন্টস হতে পারে, গভর্নমেন্ট অর্গানাইজেশন। স্টেক হোল্ডারদের যে এক্সপেকটেশন আছে তাদের সাথে কিভাবে অ্যালাইন করতে পারি। তো ম্যাপ ইউর এক্সপেকটেশন উইথ স্টেক হোল্ডার এক্সপেকটেশন। আমাদের যে এক্সপেকটেশন আছে, স্টেক হোল্ডার এক্সপেকটেশনের সাথে আমাদেরকে সামঞ্জস্যটা রাখতে হবে। এবং স্ট্রেংথ এন্ড কমন এরিয়াজ অফ স্ট্রেংথ, আমাদের খুঁজতে হবে যে আমাদের কমন এরিয়াজ স্ট্রেংথটা কি। মিনিমাইজ এরিয়াজ অফ উইকনেস, কিভাবে আমাদের উইকনেস, আমাদের যদি কোনো উইকনেস, দুর্বলতা থাকে, কিভাবে এই দুর্বলতা আমরা কাটিয়ে উঠতে পারি। এক্সপ্লোর নিউ গ্রাউন্ডস, এবং আমাদের নতুন যদি কোনো সুযোগ থাকে, অপরচুনিটি থাকে, সেটাকে আমাদের দেখতে হবে। বিল ইন্টারনাল সিনার্জি, ভেরি ইম্পর্টেন্ট। আমরা যদি ইন্টারনাল যে ধারাবাহিকতা, বা আমরা যদি সামনে দিয়ে আগানোর একটা সিনার্জি তৈরি করতে পারি, তাহলে আমাদের জন্য একটা ইজ অ্যান অ্যাডেড অ্যাডভান্টেজ। রোল ইনটু অ্যাকশন, এবং আমরা আমরা যখন অ্যালাইন করতেছি স্টেক হোল্ডারের এক্সপেকটেশনের সাথে, তখন আমরা অ্যাকশনে যাচ্ছি, এবং অ্যাকশনে গেলে উই গো ফরওয়ার্ডস, উই আর নট গোয়িং ব্যাকওয়ার্ডস। দিস ইজ ভেরি ইম্পর্টেন্ট হিয়ার। এবং তারপর হচ্ছে ম্যানেজিং, হাউ উই ম্যানেজ দিস এক্সপেকটেশনস। আমাদের অলরেডি এক্সপেকটেশন সেট করা আছে, আমরা অ্যালাইন করছি শেয়ার হোল্ডারদের সাথে বা স্টেক হোল্ডারদের সাথে। এখন আমরা কিভাবে এটা ম্যানেজ করতে পারি, ইট ইজ ইম্পর্টেন্ট বিকজ ফোকাস দ্য হলিস্টিক সিনারিও অ্যান্ড কমিউনিকেট, বিকজ আমরা জানি শুধু আমাদের নিজেদের এক্সপেকটেশন চিন্তা করলে হবে না, স্টেক হোল্ডার এক্সপেকটেশন দেখতে হবে। সো এখানে একটা হলিস্টিক অ্যাপ্রোচ আমাদের নিতে হবে। আমাদের কমিউনিকেট করতে হবে যে আমরা যে এক্সপেকটেশনটা করেছি সেটা আমাদের যে টিম মেম্বার রয়েছে স্টেক হোল্ডার তাদের সাথে শেয়ার করতে হবে। এখানে সেট রোলস অ্যান্ড রুলস, তার মানে প্রত্যেকের যে রোলস আছে, রুলস আছে, এটাকে সেট করে দিতে হবে। সেট এক্সপেকটেশন মাইলস্টোন অ্যাক্সেস। সো এখানে এক্সপেকটেশন মাইলস্টোন, আমরা এই যে আমাদের কি এক্সপেকটেশনটা, এটার ইয়েটা কি, মানে আলটিমেটলি আমরা কোথায় যাচ্ছি সেটা আমাদেরকে জানতে হবে, এবং লুজ এন্ডস, লুজ এন্ডস, এবং ফাইনালি আমাদের এটা ইমপ্লিমেন্ট করতে হবে। তো এর মাধ্যমে আমরা ম্যানেজ দ্য এক্সপেকটেশন আমরা করতে পারি। এখানে আমরা ব্রিফলি এই জিনিসটাতে যে স্টেক হোল্ডার ম্যানেজমেন্ট কিভাবে সম্ভব, এর আগের পারে আমরা একটা আলোচনা করছি ব্রিফলি যে আমাদের আইডেন্টিফাই করতে হবে, অ্যানালাইজ এক্সপেকটেশন, ডেভেলপ আ স্ট্র্যাটেজি এন্ড এনগেজ। সো এটা হচ্ছে স্টেক হোল্ডার ম্যানেজমেন্ট। তো স্টেক হোল্ডার ম্যানেজমেন্টের মাধ্যমে আমরা এটা করতে পারি। এবং এটা আমরা জানি যে যারা বিভিন্ন অর্গানাইজেশনে কাজ করছেন, ইভেন যারা এন্টারপ্রেনার রয়েছেন, যারা সিইও বা বিভিন্ন কর্পোরেশনের সাথে রয়েছেন, তাদের জন্য একটা গুরুত্বপূর্ণ বিষয় যে আপনারা কিভাবে স্টেক হোল্ডার ম্যানেজমেন্ট করতে পারেন। যারা বিভিন্ন পজিশনে লিডারশিপ রোলে আছেন, আপনাদের জন্য এটা খুব গুরুত্বপূর্ণ যে স্টেক হোল্ডার ম্যানেজমেন্ট কিভাবে করতে পারেন। তারপরে হচ্ছে যে লিডারশিপ থ্রু স্টেক হোল্ডার ম্যানেজমেন্ট, স্টেক হোল্ডার সিনার্জি, ওয়াই অ্যান্ড হাউ, এবং ড্রাইভিং টুয়ার্ডস ডিফারেন্টলি আমরা আলোচনা করেছি। তারপরে হচ্ছে স্টেক হোল্ডার ইনপুট অ্যান্ড ফিডব্যাক, আমরা কিভাবে এটা ইনপুট অ্যান্ড ফিডব্যাক পেতে পারি। আহ, আমাদের হোলিস্টিক পার্সপেক্টিভ আমরা আলোচনা করেছি যে আমাদের একটা সামগ্রিক একটা আমাদের পিকচার নিতে হবে, যে শুধু আমাদেরটা না, আমাদের স্টেক হোল্ডার্স এবং অন্যান্য যে রিলেটেড পার্টিজ আছে তাদের যে দৃষ্টিভঙ্গি সেটা আমাদের নিতে হবে। বিগ পিকচার ওরিয়েন্টেড ডিজাইন, প্রপার এনগেজমেন্ট ডাইনামিক্স, এখানে প্রপার আমাদের এনগেজমেন্ট থাকতে হবে। তার মানে কি, প্রত্যেককে ইনভলভ করতে হবে, আমাদের এমপ্লয়ি যারা রয়েছে তাদেরকে ইনভলভ করতে হবে, স্টেক হোল্ডারদের ইনভলভ করতে হবে। আন্ডারস্ট্যান্ড দ্য কনটেক্সট, আমরা কি কনটেক্সটে কাজ করছি সেটা আমাদের বুঝতে হবে। এবং আলটিমেটলি একটা জিনিস আমরা জানি যে আমাদের আমাদের জানতে হবে আমাদের কি স্ট্রেংথ রয়েছে, আমাদের কি শক্তি রয়েছে, আমাদের কি উইকনেস রয়েছে, দুর্বলতা রয়েছে, এবং আলটিমেটলি এটা আমাদের সিনার্জি, উই হ্যাভ টু ডেভেলপ দ্যাট ওয়ান। সো আলটিমেট এর ফলে হচ্ছে যে উই ক্যান গো ফরওয়ার্ড, উই আর নট গোয়িং ব্যাকওয়ার্ড। তো মিলিয়ন ডলার যে কোশ্চেনটা রয়েছে সেই জিনিসটা আমি সে বিষয়টা আলোচনা করতে চাচ্ছি যে এখানে প্রশ্ন করা হচ্ছে যে ডু ইউ সেট এক্সপেকটেশন বেসড অন হোয়াট ইউ হ্যাভ, আপনারা কি এক্সপেকটেশন সেট করেন যে যা আপনাদের অলরেডি আছে, অথবা হোয়াট ইউ প্ল্যান টু হ্যাভ, অথবা কি আপনারা প্ল্যান করছেন সেটার উপরে। সো দিস ইজ ইম্পর্টেন্ট টু আন্ডারস্ট্যান্ড যে আমরা কিভাবে এক্সপেকটেশনটা বা কিভাবে আমরা এক্সপেকটেশনটা সেট করতে পারি। সো উইথ দ্যাট আমি অ্যাডভোকেট জিয়া রহমানকে আহ্বান করতে চাই, আপনার কি কোনো ডু ইউ হ্যাভ আ ফাইনাল কমেন্টস ইন দিস মিলিয়ন ডলার কোয়েশ্চেন ইন বেঙ্গলি? আপনার কি বাংলায় বিষয়ে কোনো কমেন্টস রয়েছে? অ্যাডভোকেট জিয়া রহমান, আপনি আনমিউট করেন।
অ্যাকচুয়ালি কমেন্টস হচ্ছে যে আমরা যদি প্রাত্যহিক জীবনে আমরা যদি আমাদের লক্ষ্যগুলোর সাথে আমার কাজগুলোকে যদি কানেক্ট করতে পারি, তাহলে আমি দিনের শেষে একটা ভালো আমার যাত্রাটা ভালো হবে। আর প্রত্যেকটা লিডারেরই প্রতি প্রাত্যহিক দিনের কিছু লক্ষ্য স্থির করতে হবে, এবং সেই লক্ষ্যের সাথে নিজের যোগ্যতাকে সামনে রেখে কানেক্ট করতে হবে। যেখানে যোগ্যতা কম সেই যোগ্যতাগুলোকে আনতে হবে, এটা একটা পয়েন্ট। আর আমার মনে হয় যে আমি যেই অভিষ্ট লক্ষ্যের দিকে যাত্রা করতে চাই, সেটা প্রত্যেক দিনই আমার যার সাথে যারা কাজ করছে তাদেরকে একটু স্মরণ করিয়ে দেওয়া। যদি তারা এটা মাথায় নিতে পারে এবং স্মরণ করতে পারে, তাহলে একটা জায়গায় যাওয়ার যে সম্ভাবনা সেটা অনেকখানি অংশে বর্ধিত হয়। তো সেটা আমাদের প্রত্যেকটা মানুষের জীবনে যদি আমরা এই ছোট ছোট লক্ষ্যগুলোকে যদি একত্র করি, তাহলে একটা ভালো লক্ষ্যে আমরা পৌঁছতে পারবো। এবং এই লক্ষ্যগুলো সবার সাথে আলাপ করলে তখন এই লক্ষ্যগুলো আরো সুনির্দিষ্ট হয়, আমাদের বিশ্বাসগুলো সুদৃঢ় হয়, এবং এই সুনির্দিষ্ট সুদৃঢ় বিশ্বাসের ভিত্তিতে আমরা নিজেরাও উপকৃত হই, আমার পরিবেশ উপকৃত হয়, আমার সমাজ পরিবর্তন হয়, এবং আমরা যদি ব্যবসায়ী হই আমাদের ব্যবসাও বৃদ্ধি ঘটে। তো আমি এইটাই বলতে চাই। ধন্যবাদ।
আপনাকে অনেক ধন্যবাদ আমাদের সাথে থাকার জন্য এবং আমাদেরকে ট্রেনিং এ করানোর জন্য। তো আমরা খুব সুন্দরভাবে বুঝলাম যে আমাদের কিভাবে আমরা এক্সপেকটেশনটা আমরা সেট করতে পারি। তো উইথ দ্যাট আমরা আজকে আমাদের প্রেরণা টেলিভিশনের পক্ষ থেকে যারা দর্শক রয়েছে তাদেরকে সবাইকে আমরা ধন্যবাদ দিতে চাই আমাদের সাথে থাকার জন্য। আমাদের রেগুলার সিরিজ লিডারশিপ স্পিকার সিরিজ আমরা প্রতি বুধবার এডমন্টন সময় উইচ ইজ মাউন্টেন স্ট্যান্ডার্ড টাইম আমরা রাত 8:30টার সময় এটা করি, এবং টরন্টো টাইম কানাডা রাত 10:30, বাংলাদেশ টাইম সকাল, পরবর্তী দিন সকাল 8:30, এবং কলকাতা ইন্ডিয়া টাইম সকাল 8টা। তো আমরা নেক্সট বুধবার আগামী বুধবারে আমাদের অনুষ্ঠানে আপনাদের আমন্ত্রণ জানাচ্ছি। সকলকে ধন্যবাদ।
সবাইকে শুভেচ্ছা, ভালো থাকবেন, দেখা হবে আগামী সপ্তাহে ইনশাআল্লাহ।